If you've ever meticulously packed your ruck prior to a field op, only to get there and have you dump everything on the ground for a bag drag, and then you had to just pack everything in like a pile of dog crap because you had to go within a minute, and then you had to live out of that unorganized pack for the next 3 weeks because you never had a chance to reorganize it, hit that subscribe button, like, comment. That stuff helps me out a bit. I don't have a Patreon because I don't just want money from you guys. If you want to support me, go through Alonzo Defense, buy my t-shirts, buy the belt, that type of stuff. I know some of you have been having trouble as far as not getting your belts on time. I understand. Realize that they were hit by the hurricane and only recently did they get their facilities back up and running, and they are working on it. Rest assured they're getting your stuff done. Now, another guy that we have helping us out, Freedom Munitions, who has been sponsoring us with ammunition so that we can just go ahead and drop those knowledge bombs for you guys. So if you're looking to get ammunition, buy it through them. They have a discount code for you guys, Grand Thumb. Gives you, I think, 5 or 10% off, somewhere right around there. Point is, they're giving us ammo, they're giving you a discount. Pretty cool of them, and they make good ammo. So go ahead and buy that kind of stuff and train and be cool. All right. Army, hold on to your high and tights. Marine Corps, hold on to your crayons. We're about to take the beloved ACOG into the future with a much needed upgrade. Some would say the upgrade we deserve and the upgrade we need, which is the Advanced Combined Sighting System, the ACSS from Primary Arms. So first off, the ACOG that we're talking about is going to be the 4x ACOG. Now there are many models out there, if you've ever looked through the NSN database and that type of thing, but in the case of Primary Arms, they just have theirs noted in their system as the 4x ACOG with the ACSS reticle. So if you've had the pleasure of using the ACOG before, you know it freaking rocks. Now there are some drawbacks to that, and we're going to talk about that here at the beginning, but then what I really want to focus on is how awesome the ACSS system is and how it really takes that ACOG and extends its abilities beyond what we thought were possible, because the Trijicon's reticle, while good, I know you guys have used them to slay boats for a long time, they lack something. There's something definitely lacking that the ACSS gives it. So without further ado, let's talk about the ACOG in general at first and why you might choose one, and then specifically why the ACSS makes that way better. So first off, let's talk about the pros of the ACOG. If you ever look through an ACOG, you'll be amazed. The glass is so clear, so sharp. I feel like I have superhuman vision when I'm looking through it. And I haven't seen, as of yet, I haven't seen any 4X 1:6 or 1:8 glass that comes anywhere close to the ACOG. It's unrivaled, unparalleled in its sharpness and clarity. So that has always been one of the things that the ACOG has going for it. So if you're looking for that in an optic, ACOG is possibly one of the optics that you want to look at. Another thing that's great about the ACOG is the enormous field of view. So what field of view is when I look through an optic, we're going to say at 100 yards, it's how much I see at 100 yards. You know, do I see like 5 feet? That'd be a tiny little window that I'm seeing of that entire picture. So with the ACOG, you have an approximate field of view of 36.8 feet at 100 yards. That's enormous. So let's compare that to, say, the Trijicon TR24, the 1:4. So at 4X, you're seeing about 24.2. So you have almost another third viewing space with the ACOG, and that's pretty amazing. Now, here's the thing, is that the more field of view that you have, the bigger that field of view, especially on the Trijicons, the shorter your eye relief gets. So there's always a trade-off. Now in the case of the ACOG, specifically the 4x, this thing has a very, very short eye relief. We're talking 1.5 inches. A lot of people were taught to shoot nose to charging handle, me included. There are some ways to get around this, and we'll kind of talk about that as far as how I have my ACOG set up in a little bit. But it has a short eye relief, and so that can be kind of a pain in the butt sometimes. But nonetheless, none of the variable optics come close to it when it comes to field of view. 4X, this can be a pro or a con depending, but we'll put it in a pro. So for most people, you're going to be using the 4X, the 4x ACOG on a 5.56 platform. Perfect. That's well within the envelope and the operating range of the 5.56 and how well it can use operating. But if you're using a 308 or some other caliber, whatever oddball things you guys are using, the 4X might not be the magnification that you need, so it might not work great for you. So again, kind of figure out what magnification you need on your rifle. If you're using 5.56, 4 times should be plenty. Again, 1.6, 1:8, that is great, but I do, that rhymed, but the 4X works perfect for me. Weight. So let's talk about weight for a second. So the ACOG is extremely lightweight, and this is kind of a theme that we're going to go with here, but it weighs about 9.9 ounces. That's way less than the Aimpoint Comp M4, which is around, I think, 11.2 or something like that with mount and all that kind of stuff. And less than the EOTech, which is pretty similar to the Comp M4. So the ACOG is an extremely lightweight optic for the capabilities that it gives you. Another thing that goes along with that is, with it being so lightweight, how does it do as far as being in the field? Well, the ACOG is probably, to date, I'm worried saying this, but we're going to go ahead and roll with it, probably one of the most combat tested optics in the world up to this point, with the amount that have been fielded and the amount that have seen heavy combat use and that type of thing. I know there's lots of other optics out there, but we're going to say it's one of the top ones. These optics are extremely robust, extremely reliable. I've seen Aimpoints die. I've seen EOTechs die. These things are extremely robust. They'll serve you extremely well. So if you're looking for an extremely lightweight, extremely durable optic, the ACOG is definitely one of your choices. That's pretty high up there. Another great thing about the ACOG is how bright it is. So this thing is ridiculously bright. So bright, in fact, that most of us in the know have been taping over the fiber optic. Now, I didn't tape mine over completely. A lot of guys tape it from tip to tip, but what the electrical tape does is it ensures you don't get so much light into your reticle because it gets so bright that it almost blooms out. So by dimming it down, by putting some tape over it, it makes that reticle a little bit more precise for your long-range shots. So ACOG users, I know you guys already do this, but if you're new to the ACOG game, that's your something you're likely going to want to do in most situations, unless it's super dark out. It does have nighttime illumination. It has tritium. Realize that, you know, tritium has a half-life, so it will eventually die. But Trijicon's pretty cool about replacing that. But nonetheless, if you're doing like nighttime shooting with the ACOG, you got other things going. We're not going to get into that too much. But super bright. Now, a couple cons of the ACOG. We've talked about it before, but knows the charging handle. So super short eye relief. So if I'm looking through this, okay, I have a good sight picture through it, and I am super close to it. If I get any further away, it's still usable, but not great. A quick note on red dot placement, whether I have it offset or whether I do it on top of the ACOG. Man, that kind of comes down to personal preference. I'm going to do a video on it at some point, but there's definitely pros and cons of both, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Regarding my placement of my ACOG, I like to place my ACOG as far back as possible. That way I don't have to choke all the way up to the charging handle. And then what I typically do is I place my front sight in front of the ACOG. That way if I have to pull my ACOG off, then I can flip up my sight and all that stuff. The point is, if the sight's far rear, then I can't get my ACOG as far back. That way I have to choke up further on the gun. It's kind of an ergonomic issue. So I found that that works for me. Again, you might be different, but that's how I personally set mine up. And I've seen a lot of shooters set that up. I understand you might be limited based on your SOPs and that type of thing. Just kind of roll with it and do as best you can, and that's what matters. The ACOG is also slower under 75 yards than most other 1-6, 1-4, 1-8 optics. Right here we have the primary arms. I think this is the 1-6 optic. And at 1x, this thing is obviously faster within 75 yards. That being said, the ACSS reticle makes the Trijicon ACOG very usable at under 75 yards, but nothing's going to be as quick as a 1x. So that's just something that you have to realize. There are things that you can do. You can throw an RMR on top, on the side, but even still, you're having to kind of change your cheek weld, kind of how you're shooting, so that can sometimes be a problem as far as that's concerned. So we're going to go ahead and stick with that. That under 75 yards, the ACOG is not nearly as fast as a 1x, or especially a red dot or something like that. So if you're doing a lot of your engagements under 75, the ACOG, specifically the 4x ACOG, is probably not the optic of choice that you want to be going with. In some cases, the 4x ACOG is eclipsed by your 1-4s or 1-6 or 1x8s, and in fact, the versatility. So you have more magnification with these other ones. You don't have the clarity of glass, the weight savings, especially the weight savings. So for example, like the Vortex Razor HD Gen 2, the 1:6. Probably one of the best out there right now. Well, we'll talk about that later. Probably one of the greatest ones out there right now, and it weighs in, I think, at 25.5 ounces without a mount. With a mount, you're looking closer to probably about 30 plus. Compare that to 9.9, you're looking at a way lighter setup. So if weight is an issue, and it always is to some extent or another, then the ACOG can definitely better suit your purposes as well. I never worry about the ACOG failing me, breaking anyway, because as I said before, extremely robust, extremely reliable. So again, there's always give and take with everything, but I definitely think that the 4x ACOG has its place nowadays still on battle rifles. So we've talked a little bit about the pros and cons of the ACOG. I don't have to say too much about it. People have hit this topic way better than me in the past, but it's kind of wanted to go over it. Now, what really makes the ACOG shine, specifically this one, is the ACSS reticle. So the Advanced Combined Sighting System, that's from Primary Arms, designed by a dude named Dimitri, great dude. Basically took everything he could from a lot of different sniper schools, put them together in a sick little reticle that allows you to range, estimate, do tons of crazy stuff. We're gonna go ahead and pop the ACSS reticle up on the screen right now. That way you're not looking at me. Boom, it's up there right now. All right, so we have the ACSS reticle. So it looks kind of busy just kind of looking at it, but we're gonna break this down and talk about it. So the target that we're gonna be going for in this video is going to be, heck, I can't think of a good one. We'll do Shrek. It's all ogre now. So we've got Shrek. Now, with the ACSS reticle, let's kind of talk about what's illuminated. So we have the horseshoe reticle. So the horseshoe reticle, pretty much from the horseshoe reticle all the way out to the left and right sides, you see those two dots? That's pretty much for about 0 to 300 meters and in. That's kind of your quick acquisition stuff. That horseshoe reticle is great for really close-up shooting. It really helps draw your eye in and it allows you to get those shots off really fast. And I found that it works fairly well, 75 yards and in. Again, not as quick as a 1X or a red dot, but works quite well. Now, let's talk a little bit about the distance measuring equipment so we can kind of figure out our unknown distances and go from there. So, on the right-hand side, you see this little scale right here, and that's used to measure a person. Now, in this case, they've done that with the average. So the average adult male is somewhere around 5'10". Now, if you've watched Shrek before, any of the Shreks, you might think that Shrek is really tall. Well, it's actually that everybody's really short. You see, Shrek is actually 5'10", which is perfect for our range estimation. So what you simply do is with that right-hand side, you take your person who's standing up, like in a field or something, you measure from feet to head, and depending on where that fits, so in the case, we're gonna put Shrek here, right in our reticle, and you can see it fits all the way up to the very top, which is at 4. That's 400 meters. That means he is 400 meters away. So we can similarly go over to our ACSS reticle, look through it. So we can go over to our ACSS reticle, you see the 4, that's going to be our dope right there. So that little ladder going down is our approximate bullet drop compensation. So 4 is at 400 yards, we have 500 yards, 600, 700, 800. Now, another thing to note there is it has something very similar to Trijicon's original sighting system, which is the horizontal marks going across at the 4, 5, 6, 7, and 800. What those do, those are measuring the distance between the shoulder to shoulder. So typically, torso is about 18 inches wide, approximately. So that's what they measured on this. So if that torso fits between those two lines on that 4, he's approximately at 400 meters. That allows you to get a rough, dirty estimate on range estimation. Now, if he's any closer than 400, what we can use here is at the bottom of the horseshoe, between those two tips, that's about 300 meters. So if his shoulders fit in between there, we're looking at about 300 meters. And if we're getting all the way into the horseshoe, we're within 0 to 200. I found that within that little horseshoe, you're about putting your shots dead center on that dude. So I'm not worried too much about that bullet drop at that point. Now, a couple of things to note here. If you go to the left and the right, you see those little black dots right there. What are those for? Well, those are for a dude who's running at a full sprint. Well, running with a rifle. Now, Army did a study a while back, and they decided that when a dude's running, he's running at with a rifle and kit and all that kind of stuff. He's running at approximately 8.6, 8.8 miles per hour. So what that is, those dots allow you to then lead up on a guy who is running and take your shot. And if he's running, then if he's running left to right, you're gonna put the left reticle on him, lead him, fire, and then when that bullet impacts him, he's gonna be at that center point, and then he's going to drop. Pretty simple, pretty cool. And that works about 0 to 300. Past that, it's getting a little bit more difficult, and you're going to have to kind of extrapolate going down off of that ladder. So a couple of things to note here. Now, off the bullet drop compensating little ladder you have right here, you have little dots coming off. What those represent are 5 mile/hour crosswinds. So most people, you shouldn't be on 300 meters. Wind is a definite problem. So those allow you to get those holdovers. Now, if your wind is less than 5, let's say 2.5, then you just half that, or if it's more, double it, that type of thing. So it's a nice little easy estimation tool that you have when you're trying to make those shots. A couple of things to note on that crosshair reticle at 0 to 300. It's pretty cool because if the guy is walking, he's walking at about 3 miles per hour approximately. If you put it on the outside edge of that horseshoe and he's walking, you take your shot, that's gonna about take him down right there. So pretty cool little reticle here. There's way more that goes into this reticle than what I've talked about here. And many people have explained it a lot more who have way more combat experience than I have. For example, Brent 0331, a great active duty Marine out there. He has a great video on this as well. But the point I'm trying to make is that the ACSS reticle is a fantastic reticle that has taken the ACOG and put it into the future. With the ACSS reticle and the 4x ACOG, you have made this an extremely combat capable optic, even more so than what it was. I think this is probably one of the greatest advances. If you're looking to get an ACOG, I would highly recommend that you look at getting the one from Primary Arms with the ACSS reticle in there, because it is possibly the best out there. Trijicon doesn't sell it, only Primary Arms does. So get on there, take a look at it. But ultimately, guys, what it comes down to with any of this kind of stuff is looking cool. And undoubtedly, the ACOG on a rifle is iconic and looks cool as hell. Therefore, you're good to go. We'll be doing more with the ACSS reticle in the future, so make sure you stay tuned.